Welcome back, guys, to see some more Red Pill misinformation. We got you all here today for another episode of Access Vegas. The Super Bowl is here, so not only does every thought in North America come to Las Vegas, but also these incredible content creators are here. So we're going to introduce them right now. My man Walter Weeks, straight out of Miami. Welcome.
Back in Vegas, man. I love it here.
Jake Shills is in the house, man. He's going to teach us how to do a reverse armbar here in a second. We're going to get that thing going. Mr. Rollo Tomasi is in the house. That's correct,
cleaned
man.
all the mud off of my boots this morning.
There we go, and we're on a direct from a government watch list. Good to have you here.
Thank you, yes.
Mr. Aaron Clary, your favorite economist, is on here. Awesome, very, very good. Mr. Myron Gaines is in the place right now. The author of Fed It, that's correct, and the owner of 27 homes somewhere in the Northeast, something like that. And Mr. Marquette, the Saint and the Sinner, has joined us here. So glad to have you here. Terrific, man. Glad to have everybody in the house today. So you guys are here. We open a roundtable. We thought we'd have a roundtable discussion. We didn't let the ladies come today because they're all getting paid $3,000 to go do weird shit.
Thank God.
So we decided to just have the gentlemen here today. We don't get paid that much money to do stuff, so we're all going to go to to a bunch of parties. Anyway, what do you guys?
We can get a word in edgewise today.
I'm excited to be here. Last minute additions. Shout out to Jake Shields and Marquette for coming last minute. Aaron Clare as well, and coming on the pod because originally it was just going to be just us four, and I was like, you know what, man, we're in Vegas. Let's see if we can do something special for the people. Obviously, I love Jake Shields' tweets on X. Me and him go back and forth with these fucking crazy fucks on there. Obviously, Marquette with the Marquettism is shout out to the Saints. And man, I'm just happy that we're all here in Vegas and you guys can get some of this game from all these individuals at this table, man.
Right.
So I'm just here to.
So it's the weekend, Super Bowl weekend.
I haven't even slept yet. I'm wearing the same clothes from last night's show. By the
We
way.
streamed Overwatch for 6 hours. After our stream, there's a lot.
Yeah, we did our after-hour stream. We streamed some video games. Then we didn't sleep. Just jumped on a plane, came over here. We met with Chris from Rumble and Sneeko and hung out with them. And now we're here doing the pod. I haven't slept yet. Fucking delirious, but it's awesome.
Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
Hey, let's get you in a cold plunge later, and we'll stream that.
I'll probably die.
No, you want to try?
We could try.
Wake you, trust me, you won't be delirious. You'll be woke.
But I guess does anyone you got?
Let's talk about RP. I guess
we
space
can?
itself. I guess.
Or does anyone introduction? Man, people know who people are, right?
I was going to say
you don't know who these guys are at the table.
I started when we started talking about this about 2 weeks ago, and I think it was because Justin Waller was wanting to put together a show with you, me, Justin Waller, and everybody else. We wanted to talk about really kind of this moralism that's sort of coming at the red pill recently, and I just want to point out right before we get rolling here is that I put out the call on Twitter saying if you want to show up, you know where it is. Right? I said this is where Sticky. Probably George was pissed off at me for doing that.
I was like, Rollo, what the fuck? What are you doing?
Just show up here.
Public.
There's a bunch of black vans outside. Can we leave the front door, please?
I know. It's not that I don't have NGOs in the DHS after me already.
Yes,
but I put out a call and for Chase from whatever podcast and anybody else who wanted a piece. I'm like, you know where it is. Come
wanted a piece.
Yeah, come and get it, right? And of course, nobody wants to do that. So, and that was just sort of proof of concept because we were bouncing around the idea of having sort of like I think it was me and you and Mike and Justin on one side of the table, and then I know Chase and Lila Rose and some of these other people who are just sort of come ups in the space right now. And it's like the 90% of the shit that comes out of their mouths is just ignorance. It's like they just don't know what they're talking about. And so my biggest gripe, and if you ever see me type in all caps, there's only one thing that makes me type in all caps. It's when people start saying those red pill guys say X, Y, and Z. I'm like, who the fuck are you talking about?
So who? Those red pill
guys, this guy, anybody at this table, put a fucking name on your Twitter.
Well, they don't want to do that.
Please tell me who you think is saying this.
Because they can't keep quoting Pearl Davis, so they can't do that.
Exactly.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
They can't because that's the only person they're quoting. They're not quoting anyone else.
And this, I could say, okay, so let me go back in time a little bit here, cue up the sound effect from Memory Lane, right? This kind of started, for us at least, and I want to get your guys' take for sure, but this kind of started for us. We went on Timcast Culture War, right? And for those that aren't aware, it's a 2v2 debate type situation where you sit across the table from someone that pretty much is an antagonist, right? And we sat across from a guy, I forget his name, nice guy though, family guy. It was something like Alpha Dad or something like that. He has a Twitter platform.
Yeah, I remember.
And we debated with him on this situation, and he was arguing, hey, follow Christ, be religious, be a family member, etc., which I agree with.
Yes.
I am I think everyone here at the table is a big proponent of the nuclear family. And let me be extremely clear about that. Me and you have talked about it extensively with the nuclear family. Everyone here at the table, I've had conversation with you guys about the nuclear family and how it is the backbone of a thriving civilization. But let's understand that we're in 2024 and the landscape has changed. So I'm telling them, look, that is ideal, but we got to operate on what's real. Women are no longer the same. And just because you found your wife and you were able to get on your program and she was, fears God and everything else, a lot of these hoes don't. That's not how the world works anymore. So we had this debate, and people kind of saw like, okay, that's ideal, but the reality is most people aren't religious anymore. Most people live secular lives. Most people live godless lives, and you got to kind of adapt to the new normal and understand how to at least identify these women so that you don't take them seriously. Right. Yeah, at least identify.
I think exactly. Having slept around a lot, you really learn what women do. You learn how to tell when they're shady, like. If you haven't gone and slept around, you aren't going to be able to read women. You have to go. I think it was you who said go sleep with at least 50 women or something. It's
they go after me all the time.
That's not even that many, but that's how you start like learning women, though.
It's so funny. Like,
that's not that many.
50. I mean, what are you talking about?
It sounds like, but that's like how you learn the psychology. And you see when women, you see the lies they're telling other dudes when there's you and shit, and you start being like, oh, so you learn to spot the signs. If you ain't doing that, you can't. Like I could tell. Hey, some girls are good liars, but I could usually tell pretty quick their character because I've gone and done the crazy shit. And I think for men, we can live like that, and it's easy for us when we want to go settle down, get a family. The girls don't care. Unfortunately for women, it don't work that way. The girls are usually out running around. I see the girls I used to party with. Most of them are still single, trying to find a man. And most of the guys that we're doing this with, settled down, living a different life. So it's interesting. I don't know. I don't think everyone's different. I don't say you guys need to do that, but you're going to learn a woman a lot better if you do.
Yeah. How much of the argument coming from the traditional argument
my bad. Sorry. So so fast forward. So it started there with the culture war, right? And it kind of brought attention to it. And then next thing I know, like, trad cons are kind of saying like, and I know they're talking about me because they're using the 50, using the number,
the marker,
50 girls. Because I came out, long story short, hey,
they fix
you don't want to get married unless you have a few things in place. Make $100,000 per year, have 6 months of savings, be in shape, 35 years old, and have sex with 50 women. I think at that position, you're in a situation where you are aware of women, you're financially competent to a degree where you could be in a position where a woman will respect your authority to some degree. The average woman should be able to follow that lead. You set a decent example at that point, right? That's just to get married. 50 girls, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Going crazy. So I see the Tradcons over on, on whatever, saying whatever, and, obviously Chase saying what he says. And he's like making it look like I'm sitting here promoting degeneracy, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just telling guys to adapt to the new normal.
How much of it is the people from the traditional side of the argument are older? Like I'm thinking Dennis Prager is ancient. Dave Ramsey also, and I'm again not against nuclear family, and these guys are very fortunate. They've had their wives the entire time, and fine, good for them. But how much of this is just old way of thinking? Like 30 years ago, 40 years
Dennis
ago,
Prager's cases, I think he's on his third wife.
He's on his third wife, right? But 40 years ago, it was wise counsel to go and get a college degree. Now that's one of the worst things you could possibly do in times of change. How much of it is just old farts thinking old fart stuff?
I'm just curious what's their solution because, look, the problem is, let's say you go get married nowadays, right? Without the experience, what's going to happen to you? You get divorced, raped, you get, for example, half your money gone, and it's like, okay, we're telling guys a solution. What's their solution? I don't know what it is, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, their thing is, be religious, and that's going to kind of save you. And my thing is, I think what that'll do is you kind of pull the wool over your eyes when you do that because what ends up happening is you're going to look at the girl from an idealistic perspective versus a realistic perspective. Like, oh, she's a stripper, but she found God now or something like that. And it's like, I look at it like women always reserve the right to go back to feminism whenever it suits them. And they will. They will go ahead and use the divorce court against you if they want. I hate to use this example, but like, look at Steven Crowder. Married a traditional conservative Christian woman, God-fearing. And what did she do?
Tries to ruin his career.
She's trying to destroy him right now. And she edited clips to make him look like a monster when it wasn't the truth at all.
Everyone in the argument has done and said some stupid shit with any serious girlfriend. So edit a little clip.
Absolutely.
I'm sure any of your exes, you could do this bitch is saying some crazy shit, but I would never like record it and edit it out. That's
what makes it even more heinous? She sent it to the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Like she had the
on purpose, by the way.
She had the intent to destroy this man. Like you're gonna go after him and send it to his. Pretty much his ops, right? Sorry, I can't think of a better term right now. I'm asleep. But you send it to his ops. You know that they're going through a feud right now, the whole contract situation. Yeah. You're going to send it to them, and then they all pretty much like, they're dropping hit pieces on him and shit. It's like, come on, man. You're supposed to be his wife, his confidant. At least keep that behind. Like, have your divorce court on the side. Don't destroy the man's reputation and his ability to earn money for the children.
Yeah, with hidden videos. And I'm sure she said some crazy shit to him, too, if he filmed it.
And at some point, she loved him. They said till death do us part or until she's unhappy. But Mark, what's your take on this, bro?
Yeah.
Just curious.
A lot. So, number one.
Take your time, brother. Take your time. Give us the wisdom.
I hear it percolating over there.
I just sit back waiting to say some crazy, wild stuff. So I want to turn the entire world upside down. Number one, I'd like to say that Christianity is entirely lost. For example, you find Christians in America, you'll find an LGBTQ flag on the church itself. You'll find churches that have female pastors, where in the Bible it states that a woman should learn in quiet subjection. A woman should not be the leader of men.
And the bishop should be the husband of one man. Or I'm sorry, the bishop should be. The bishop should be.
It does not.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The bishop should be the husband of one wife. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The bishop should be the husband of one wife. And the church you're referring to, there's one in Los Angeles. It's at the intersection of Fuller and Highland. You're right. It's just a huge LBGT flag.
And Fresh is going to be a pastor, so he can definitely. Yeah,
That's crazy, by the way.
Are you really studying?
Yeah,
He was going to be a
I was going to be
Okay.
in Canada.
Yeah, so Christianity is extraordinarily lost, as is the identity of the American, because we forget that this country was started by religious zealots, right? Dude on the Quaker box, Puritans, these kinds of folks. So we're very lost from an identity standpoint. Christianity is lost as well. Then when you go beyond that, I'd like to assert that the man who is succumbing to marriage is probably one of the weakest men in the society. I'd actually turn up things a degree higher and state that men who are truly traditional, today you actually have to do things that historically would not be viewed as traditional. Whereas previously you get into the marriage contract, this woman is now essentially your property. She's subject to you and to your domination. Now when the marriage occurs, you're subject to the government's domination. So it is the weak male who submits to marriage, for marriage is beneficial to the female. Why? Because it locks you into a long-term contract, like Scottie Pippen, right? You get in that long-term bad contract, and what happens is that over time, the female's declining rapidly in value, menopause, things like this, right?
biological fact.
Right?
Yeah.
And here's the worst part about it. Are you getting the things you really wanted when you were going into the marriage? All of the things every male actually wanted: sexual variety, peace of mind, sex on demand.
No.
She's getting all of the things she sought: commitment, financial support, even if you're not in the relationship after the marriage. So the marriage is a horrible deal for men. In fact, I would suggest that today it only makes sense when you're about to procreate, and I still wouldn't do it legally. And the only reason I'm doing it when I'm about to procreate is so that we're not mixing paternal blood, because that's a filthy thing.
Wow. Well
Yeah.
said.
I mean,
Let me tag something else. I think we talked about this in our debate.
That was
awesome. Yeah, boy, it really destroyed me. Each other. I think we mutually assured
He's
destruction.
going to clickbait, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it was, good. That was fucking good.
This is the niggas just chopping it up, man.
No, we were talking about this, and one of the things I mentioned, I couldn't remember it at the time, but I do now. It's coverture laws. And when I was writing Religion, my fourth book, in the very thick part of the chapter about marriage in there, I'd mentioned coverture laws. There is this misnomer, or this misinformation. We're kings of misinformation, right? There's this misinformation that like women were considered like property up to a point, right? Or they couldn't own businesses, or they couldn't have their own money. They were basically that at the the beck and call, and like basically just house slaves of their husbands. And the fact of the matter is as far back as like the mid 1700s up in through the 1800s, there were what were called coverture laws. And what coverture laws were was a woman who was not married could own money, could own land, could own business, could inherit it from her family. Like if she had this as part of her inheritance because her father had started the business and now she takes over it, as long as she wasn't married. So when she got married, all of that went over to the husband, not because it was some sort of tyrannical thing. It's because of what you just said. The husband was responsible in every aspect for the children and for the wife. So what that meant was the reason why they had coverture laws is because if that woman had land or she had that business and she was married and she ran that business into the ground, or she killed somebody, or their children ended up being criminals or whatever, it was the husband and the father who was responsible for all of that. That's why today when we see some kid that goes in commits suicide or has a drug problem or is in some way criminality or something like that, we don't go, where's the mother? We go, where's the father? Because we're still thinking, well, who's the authority? Well, that's because coverture laws back at the time, it meant that women could still do that as long as they remained unmarried. So it was on her if the business failed. It was on her if the land was, not used in a way that, she would have liked to have been used, right? So the thing is back then, for women, if they wanted more agency, if they wanted more power, they could remain unmarried and have all of that. The thing is now today, we have coverture laws, but they're for men. You have more maneuverability and more power outside of marriage in the same effect than you do inside of marriage, because what happens is all of the responsibility for still maintaining the family and everything, that's all still there. But if there's a divorce in there, then she's going to be entitled to half of that or whatever the assets are. And we've talked about this with James Sexton. I really wish we could have got James Sexton for this panel, but essentially the coverture laws have been reversed in the 21st century, meaning that men have more maneuverability outside of marriage than they do inside of marriage.
And I'll say this too, real quick. Last time I was on here, if you guys remember, I think it was the matchmaker from LA. I asked her,
Nelly.
Name one benefit that men get in a relationship that they don't get outside of the relationship. She couldn't name anything. And that's the question I ask every girl when they say, "Oh, well, I want to get married," blah blah blah. Then I ask, "Well, what benefit does a man get in a marriage that he wouldn't get in a regular relationship?" And the answer is nothing. And it's funny because actually, this is public. The game actually took that clip and put it on his Instagram. And because I think it's getting out there now. Like a lot of people don't admit it. A lot of these celebrities and stuff like that, they watch our content, man. Shaq talked about how you should never open up to a woman vulnerability-wise.
Right.
Like,
Word for
these
word.
guys are watching this content. These guys have been destroyed by the divorce machine
They
at
use
the
some
highest
language
level.
we've used before. You go,
If you guys want to check out something, I'm sure
It's getting out there is my point.
The two of you look
which
at
is
this.
great.
Look on Instagram at your shares, and also on YouTube, your shares versus your likes. I'm starting to get more shares than I do
Damn, that's
likes
crazy.
now.
That's a
And
good
it was,
sign.
It was actually Dan Fleischman was explaining this to me. He was like, these people don't want their coworkers to know they like your content.
Yeah.
So that is something that, so if you guys look at the ratio, usually if you see some girl in a bikini competition, she's going to get 100,000 likes and maybe, 5,000 shares. If you're getting 50,000 shares and 10,000 likes, that means these people like your content. They're sending it to
For
their
real.
coworkers.
Scared to like it for real.
But they don't want people to know that they like it. And like you said before,
Yeah,
they're
I was
repeating.
shocked when I saw someone sent this to me. I saw LA Confident. I was like, holy fuck! Like, I mean, it's public, so I say it, but I'm like, damn! Like, he put that out there, so I'm like, okay, this is great. This information is getting out there to a broader audience, so guys understand. Wait, you're telling me I don't have to get married? You're telling me like, I
There's
don't
so
have to
many
put myself in
celebrities that
situation?
actually watch our content, bro. Like, I've met them in person. They're like, bro, I love your shit. Famous NBA players, athletes. It's like, bro, this is amazing. But I can't be seen with you guys
It's
because
so true.
Right.
I
Brand
literally-
deals.
People are such cowards.
One of the Golden
Scared to
Knights.
like a tweet and shit.
One of the Golden Knights came up to me at an event I just threw the other day, and he's like, "Dude, I love your content. My wife doesn't like it."
And I'm sure all of us have been told by a celeb. The only reason I even mentioned the game is because he put it on his Instagram publicly,
Sure.
like for everybody to see. I was like, oh, that's fucking lit. So he wants other guys to understand, like, because it's pretty important. Young guys don't know.
Yeah, most famous women understand women too because they've been around, they've seen it. Because from not being famous and rich to all of a sudden becoming famous and rich, you see how differently you're treated. Okay, luckily I learned women before I had money and stuff, but you still see you're treated much differently. And a lot of guys, they don't understand this.
So let's talk about. You made a great point before. Is like we don't want to bash people for being Christian. That's definitely not what we want to do. But there's a difference between discernment and judgment, right? So what it says in the Bible, it says, "He who sticks his hand to the plow while looking back is not fit for the kingdom of God." It's telling you need to use logic and you get experience. Remember, I was once young and now I'm old and I've never seen the righteous forsaken. It says this in the Bible. You can still use experience. You can still know these things. Steven Crowder is a smart guy. He knows a lot of things, but I guarantee you I know more about female nature than Steven Crowder because he married the first woman he put his penis in. And that's the problem. That's what happened. And so regardless of what happened here, he trusted in something. He trusted in a God that's telling him, you should be wise. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This idea that I'm just going to leave it all up to them, that's ignorance. There's nothing in the Bible where it says for you to be helpless. No, you should have wisdom. And King Solomon prays for wisdom.
Yeah.
And so why can't we have wisdom when it comes to these things? And what you're not promoting is hedonism. You're promoting discernment. You're promoting experience. The experience you're promoting. Now I have some clients who are religious and I tell them if you don't want to have sex with all these women, it's fine, but you need to have experience like going on dates and getting to know this is the action. We talk about the difference between this is attention you're getting from a woman. This is compliance you're getting from a woman. You think you're getting compliance, you're actually getting attention. When fellas out there, when a woman sends you nudes, that's not compliance, that's attention. She sent those nudes out to 34 other dudes. Okay? Those are just her thumbs. When she shows up at your place, that's compliance. That's why you don't leave you don't leave comments, heart eye emojis on her stuff. That's you're giving her attention in return for nothing. I'll give her compliments when she comes to my apartment. when she comes, when she makes me dinner. Then I'll give her compliments because she's given me compliance, not attention. And that discernment is what a lot of these men don't understand. And so we end up in a situation where the church is, you're going to go to the Wednesday youth group, right? The young adults group. And the young adults group is going to be the guys who stayed, and they stayed a virgin, because it's much easier for a guy to stay a virgin than a woman. He stayed a virgin. He followed the Lord. And then this other woman, she, did porn for a while, and then she came back to the church. But we're putting these two people in the same youth group now. We're putting them in the same young adults group, and we're putting them together. And then in order for, me as the church, I got to make this stick somehow. So I'm like, well, she is now absolved of the fact that she did all these things. And so the guy who's a virgin might be like, hey, should I be marrying a woman who's been with this many dudes? And the church is going to be like, well, we absolved her. So yeah, I mean, I guess you're supposed to do that. And that's the problem, because if they don't absolve the woman for her sins, then the church has no real leverage or power. And so then they would lose that whole thing. And in the end, it is that man, it's that lower status man, or that man who doesn't have any discernment or experience. He's the one who ends up being the victim.
How much of this is also, it's a kind of a peculiarly Christian thing where you're almost abdicating your thought and logic to God and to Christ? Whether, I slept with a ton of guys and ruined some families, but I'm a born again. And then you kind of have an equally dopey, well, gee willikers, shucks howdy, I'm going to do well, and, I'm a really...
Ned Flanders.
Well, no, Ned Flanders actually was a badass. If you watch, he was a hard-ass Christian. But in general, where if I just do what God tells me, God will take care of it, an element of fatism. And when you have two people coming in with honest intentions, that works. But
none of this is about religion. It's a cloak. You have one guy who says he's a Christian, another guy who says he's a Christian, and then they utilize this to explain their thinking and behaviors, yet they behave radically differently. The guy who remains a virgin and says it's because of his Christianity, 9 out of 9, that's not the case. It's because of his nature and his upbringing and the information he was provided.
His weirdness.
Precisely. It's not actually because of religion, because the truth of all the religions is most people don't believe. If people actually believed in the religion, we'd all be taking huge risks. Let's go bungee jumping. Let's speed on the highway. I'm going to heaven anyways. When we meet someone who actually believes in religion, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
We think they're weird because they actually believe. When those boys are like, let me strap this to my chest and I'm about to go to my 40 virgins. They're terrifying to us because they actually believe.
Yeah, they believe it, yeah.
These guys do not believe. They're using religion as an explanation for how they are living or what their deficiencies are. And with regards to Steven Crowder, it's an issue of selection. There's two major issues. Number one, the hero in the society, especially for those of us who are upright and traditional, and we follow the rules and we go to college, it's, you got married and you stayed married and you maintained those vows, which is to say you stayed in there like a sucker in a 9-to-5 job, waiting to get your retirement pension. That's extraordinarily dumb. And that's what weaklings do. They get into bad situations and they're not strong enough to say, hey, this is not for me. But we've told that story consistently and guys follow it, because they don't know what the alternative is.
Well,
go ahead, Aaron.
Still along the same line that I was making. So the intention is for rationalization, not having to face up to ownership, the hard work that would come with sleeping with 50 women, rejection and all that other stuff. Where I only see a defense for this traditionalism, think Christians, whatever their motivations might be, is they're the minority. If you look at everything we've talked about, because we're on our third generation now of people getting divorced. I think everyone here has seen or has had their parents get divorced, grandparents get divorced. The empirical evidence is undeniable.
People need to look
book
at
of numbers, but
your book of numbers breaks it down fantastically.
Right.
Like the terrible odds.
It's horrible. It's horrible. But I can't imagine, here's some guy like, what do I believe, the trad cons, or to believe these empiricist red pill type of people. You just look at the chaos and the blood in the streets with divorce rates, what girls are doing. The internet just shows it to you in 4K. I think the only way you could, in today's world, defend marriage is you would have to have some kind of religious affiliation that allows you to, for lack of better words, abdicate responsibility and believe, God will take care of it and all that. So in other words, what I'm saying is I don't really think there's a debate. I think we've won. And you got these holdouts who are delusional or for whatever reason. And to make a point to the audience, any younger man listening or any guy thinking about marriages, you guys are 100%. The laws have changed. We are definitely pro-marriage, or not pro-marriage, sorry, pro-family, pro-nuclear family,
Everyone in this panel
pro-stability,
is-
Christianity, a good religion, whatever. But these girls are not playing by those same rules. And there's a high percentage of them that are going to feel, oh, yeah, I totally believe
And
in
let me say
Jesus.
this, too, because we've been hypercritical of the Christian faith. Let me also, as someone that grew up in a Muslim household, let me also be honest and let you guys know that